Hello, and welcome to another week of our Move It or Lose It podcast. And today I'm so excited to be joined by someone that I think you'll find very hysterically funny and one of my other MSers. So, welcome to the show today, Shari Short. Welcome, and I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. So I've seen a little bit of you. I saw you on I heard you on a podcast, saw a couple of your things, and I loved how you used comedy with the MS. So I want to go back to a couple of questions before we get there. So talk to me a little bit before diagnosis. So everybody wants to know, what was life like before the diagnosis?
Yeah, I was working, full time in an ad agency, which you can imagine is pretty busy, right? And I had my son was 4 when I was diagnosed. So I was like a working mom, young kid. You need the energy, he's just our one son. So my husband and I, we were just always doing stuff with just him, and it was a very active life. And I was running, and I was just kind of feeling really good in my late 30s. Like, look, I have my body back, blah, blah, blah,
right.
blah, and then, and then life had other plans, so I was just a very, social and very active, mom before it hit. Yeah.
And then when you were running, you were doing a 10K, right?
I was training for a 10K.
Okay, gotcha.
I'd only done 5Ks at that point.
Okay.
So my father, he was a marathoner. And so we grew up going to Boston like every April.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know other dads didn't do that. Like, I thought everybody's dad.
Right.
I thought you get in the station wagon in the 70s every April, and you go. Or everybody's dad, was cranky if it rained or snowed. So I was very excited to just do 5Ks,
Sure.
And then I was gearing up with the ad agency was putting together a team for a 10K, and I'm like, I'm going to do it. I already had MS by that point, but the MS had just affected my vision. It had not affected my mobility yet. And then I don't know if I overheated through training to a certain point where I brought it on. I don't want to make it sound like I have power and it's magical, but I don't know. But I was training hard, and then I lost feeling on my left side, and that was that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's a big one. I remember the neurologist I had years ago who passed away. And if you ever hear my podcast, you hear me talk about him because I loved him. And he would always tell me, no full marathons, because I always wanted to do more and more and more. So he would sit me next to someone I didn't know during my infusion. And sure enough, it'd be next to someone who had run a full marathon and who never came back from it, because it's so hard on our bodies to run a full, and we get so overheated. So I learned to have like a lot of like cold things if I was running in the heat around my neck. I looked a little silly, but I fell a lot. People decided that should be bubble wrapped. I thought that probably wouldn't be a bad idea, but I did. It was difficult. I also, my left side. So is your vision, is that in your right or your left eye?
So the optic neuritis I had, which was my first relapse, was in my left eye.
Okay.
And then as a result, down the line, I got vision back, and it was crazy, the colorblind from the optic neuritis. And then everything came back, but it was all a little bit worse. And then I needed glasses. So, and when you get glasses and you still are mobile, people don't go, oh, you must have MS. No, there was like, it's like, oh, she's getting glasses. So that was, I was able to kind of like keep that to myself for a little while.
Right. Sure. And you were diagnosed to your diagnosis, that was in 2008.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you ran, I'm sorry, go back to that. You did know you had MS then?
I was running. Yeah, I was prepping for that 10. Okay. I was running. Wait. I can get this. I was running. Yes, definitely. I wasn't prepping for the 10K yet. I was running And when I got the optic neuritis, because I remember getting off a treadmill and my eyes felt really weird. There was
Yeah.
like some pain.
Right.
And then got diagnosed, got on treatment, and continued to run, then started to train. And then it was in March of 2009 that I had the huge relapse that caused my mobility.
Gotcha. So now is the eyesight, because my optic neuritis is in the right eye. So that's been one of my first symptoms, and it went away for a little while, a couple of years. And I was like, yes, I have perfect vision, till I went to the eye doctor and they were like, not really. And then it's very much back again. I can't see out of the right eye, but they're beautiful ornaments. They just don't work well.
Yes. They're nice to have.
Yes.
I've had 2 bouts of optic neuritis, and I'm pretty sure the second bout was in the right eye. So they've both been, at the party.
So
but they were years apart.
Right. We both have had where we've lost all of become paralyzed on the left side. So how much of that were you able to get back after that relapse?
I don't know that anything came back on the left side from that one. I think over time it just started crawling up the right side from the ankle up.
Right.
And then some feet, loss of feeling in the feet. But the left one, it was kind of like, just waist down.
Oh, gotcha.
And,
okay.
The Solumedrol did its job.
Right.
It got me back to a point where I could lift. We had what you do with the kids when they're growing is a height chart.
Right.
We were doing with how far can I lift the foot up? How far can I
Sure.
lift the foot up? And with steroids, that just eventually got better and better. And then a few relapses ago, I had to take a break from driving because I could not feel what I needed to feel to drive.
That's scary.
Terrifying. And we got some adjustments done on my car.
Okay.
So I have a different shape, almost like a brake pedal. It's just longer and stuff, and it's made me more confident when I'm driving.
Good.
But yeah, everything is little by little when the Solumedrol is done. I like to refer to it as you're in a relapse, and it's like you went away on vacation and your house is on fire. And you have no idea what's going to be salvageable when you get home.
Exactly. I love that.
And,
I've never heard that before.
Because it's mine. It's me.
Right. I like it. It's a good one. I'm not saying I won't steal it, but I probably won't remember it for more than 30 seconds. So it's okay.
Steal away, because you know exactly what I mean. And it's just I have to wait and see every time. Now, fortunately, with the treatment I'm on now, I'm not relapsing.
Now, what treatment are you on now, Shari? What is it?
I'm on Ocrevus.
Okay, that's what I'm on as well now. So you're doing pretty steady on that.
Well, I am. I think right now with my MS, the struggle is the long-term damage. It's been 14 years or so, and there's just things that MS has done its share of nerve damage on that now they're like, it's been 14 years. We're not healthy,
Right.
And so I'm dealing with like typical MS stuff. And
you mean when you go to the doctors and they tell you there's no hot spots on your MRI, you should be fine? You mean you're not?
I love my neurologist so much, and she, I think that's so important. But so she's never, she's never looked at me as just relapses. She's always kind of, been a whole tapestry of things. And sometimes, she was proactive and, I want you to see the urologist, or I want you to see this person or that person. I'm like, no, I don't need it yet. I don't need it. And then I come back, I'm like, okay, I need it. She's like,
I remember in the early years, you probably will. I was diagnosed before you. I was in the late 90s. So, but I remember them always asking, how's your urine? I'm like, fine, how's yours? Because when a lot of times we're newly diagnosed, that isn't an issue yet. So we're like, let you know when it gets there. And then all of a sudden it's there. And you're like, okay.
And I have a very strong theory that urologists who are men should not be handsome, because I've had to deal with two now, and I can't, like, I'm trying to, they're like, all right, so how do you sit when you,
Right.
and I'm like, no, I'm sorry, but that's a really good shade of green on you. And I can't.
Or a
So
gynecologist. Neither one of those should be attractive
they
men
just
ever.
shouldn't.
No.
There should be like a med school
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
track.
I agree. That's too much. It's too much. So now let's go, before I want to talk about after the diagnosis, what had changed for you the most?
I wear, in general, I mean, I wear 2 leg braces and I walk with a cane, and
Yeah.
and I have, bladder issues that make me a little bit more high maintenance. Definitely need to know where the restaurant bathroom is. I definitely need to rethink what concerts or anything that I should or could go to, because I mean, even staff retreats for my job, it's like, oh, it's mini golfing. Okay. All right, cool. Where,
Right.
all right. Well, that's a lot of standing, where there's not a lot of sitting, and where's the bathroom.
Right.
And I just have to take a lot more into account
Right.
now on the big picture. But like right after the initial diagnosis, it was just the eyesight.
Yeah.
But now in the big picture, I'm a different, I'm a different entity. Because
now, do you find it difficult, Shari, for your personality? Because I know you use comedy, you're a comedian, but that doesn't mean, I'm not going to presume that you're super, so what I'm looking for, that you're super extroverted. You might be. I know I am.
Yeah, I'm definitely extroverted, but I'm kind of a weird extrovert. Like I'm extroverted in the sense that I can hold conversations, and I like to talk. But if I'm at a party, I'm overwhelmed by the amount of people, and I find my person and we sit and talk. Like I'm a weird extrovert that way. The MS has, I think, given people in some ways, they feel like there's a door to talk to me about it. And I guess it's because I wear the braces or I have the cane. And I used to be asked, like, if I hurt myself, and not used to be, that actually still happens. Well, you know what? That's true. I'm sorry. That has happened to me twice in the past year. And I get a little shy with those. But if it's this kind of situation where I know I'm going to talk about
right,
and I'm an open book.
Right.
But the lady in the bathroom at the intermission for the Lewis Black thing is, I really don't want to give her my blood type,
Exactly. So. No, we shouldn't, but I do find that is, I talked about it a little bit now that I have, a cane sometimes, or I've got the walkers, the poles, that it's like, now all of a sudden I've had this for over 20 years, but now it's like, oh my gosh, are you okay? I have MS. I've had it for a long time. Like,
this is how it's going to go. Yeah. This is how it's going to go. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about, I'm not one of Jerry's kids. We get that all the time. We're not one of Jerry's kids. We have MS, not MD. Thank you. So I love that.
Yeah. Well, it's, it's real. People, and even like you just said, the people who are surprised to see you moving on in terms of mobility aids. It's like, well, what part of degenerative is lost out there?
Right.
This is what's going to happen.
Right.
And, not all the same. And I still hear great stories about people with MS who have no mobility issues like I do or like you do.
Right.
That's not my lot.
Too, sure. I would say, like, I told you that some of my clients that I train are in bed or in a wheelchair. Others are very fast, but I find it I find it all I'm very inquisitive. I love people. And so I'm just watching how some of us cognitively are right here. And I'm just like down here right at this moment. So I find it so interesting, because the people that may not be able to use as much of their body as they were previous, cognitively, it's so weird how it just affects us all different. They're spot on. And I'm like, wow, listen to them, write and read all that stuff. I don't even think I could do that anymore.
Right. Like my physical fatigue is so different from my mental fatigue. It's certainly, I think that happens with a lot of diseases though. It's like our bodies are so different, and we're just going to take them in a different way and take in the stresses a different way.
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
I'm pretty cerebral in terms of my work, and psychology and patient education and health stuff. So it's not like I'm funny all day,
So right. So
it's
tell us about that. You do that during the day. So during the day you do
by day.
by day
Yes.
you are.
So I'm trained in grad school as a developmental psychologist, and I work for a wonderful company that I help create materials for patients of across the spectrum of diseases. It's not just neurology and whatever.
Right.
Although I will put in my 2 cents if it's an MS project, to help patients advocate for themselves, to help patients better understand behavior change in terms of adherence and in terms of, staying on meds and stuff like that, and wellness. And it's a wonderful company that I work for, but because our clients are pharma related, I really get to see how it is on the other side of my drugs.
Sure.
And I'm meeting really interesting people. So it's really nice sometimes to be able to say, well, I actually live with this disease.
Right.
So here's what I can tell you. And,
Right.
it takes people will be looking at a pie chart, market research, and I'm like, I'm right here. What can I answer?
Right.
So,
Which is
well,
so
not
important.
like 10 of one.
Yeah. And it
The
is so
patient
important
voice.
to do that, to be able to advocate in so many different ways. And I want to go back to one of the questions that I'm going to go back a couple. So I want to talk about now, I know your daytime job. How did you get into comedy, and you was very young, and now, so 2-part question. If you remember it, then I know where you are cognitively. So how did you start, and how is it helping now?
The stand-up comedy, it did need a formal start, because it was like 1984, 1985, like around then. It's not like it was like talked about or studied in school or anything like that. I basically took it upon myself to write to whoever ran the Comedy Works, which was a comedy club at 2nd and Chestnut in downtown in Center City, Philadelphia. And he wrote back. I mean, just this amazing letter came back to me in the mail and just said, Shari, I'm so excited to hear that you want to do this. And, I kind of laid out who my influences were, and I don't know how to get started. What should I do? And this man took the time to write back to, a 9th grader with braces, and then, invited me to come down to the clubs and just start watching. So fortunately, I had older siblings with driver's licenses. And so, they would drive me down, and I would sit in the club and I would just watch, or my parents would sometimes agree to do it. They were so hoping this was a phase. And it was the Comedy Works was on top of an Indian food restaurant. So they'd go have dinner and I'd be upstairs. And it was during a period of time where just not a lot of women comics. So I was really often surrounded by like 10 to 12 just beautiful, wonderful, neurotic, chain smoking guys who were trying to make it in the industry. And some of them have, and I'm thrilled for them. But I was like the kid sister with the braces. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So tell me who some of your favorite comedians were. Yeah, I know Joan Rivers and
Joan Rivers, and I've been completely shaped by Gilda Radner. In terms of comedy, in terms of stand-up comedy, this was back when Paula Poundstone and Ellen DeGeneres were new.
Right.
They were just getting HBO attention. Rita Rudner, I loved back then. I love them all now, but if we're talking about back then,
absolutely.
Yeah. And so, and one of the pieces of advice I got from the guy who ran the comedy club was, start paying attention to why you like what you like.
Very smart.
And instead of just, oh, I like that, but okay, why? What is it?
Right.
And keep a notebook when you're watching your sitcoms and write down the lines you thought were funny, but why did you think they were funny?
Right.
And so, I have a whole MASH notebook
I
from that era. Because, oh my God, Hawkeye would say all these funny things.
Right.
But I definitely, excuse me, I definitely learned to identify what it was about the comics I liked. This was the period of time when Eddie Murphy's Delirious came out. I knew every word. I knew every word.
How did you get that? Because my parents, I was grounded for life if I was to ever watch that. I couldn't even watch it till I was older and snuck away.
So here's a good one. I was about 8 or 9, I think.
Really?
9 when no, not when Eddie Murphy Delirious. It was before that. Okay. Now that was the preteen teenager years with Eddie Murphy. But when I was 8 or 9, we got HBO, and I got to see Gilda Radner in her movie or show, a movie that was produced based on Gilda Live. And she sings a song called "Let's Talk Dirty to the Animals." I knew every word. And my dad said, if you stop singing that song, I'll take you to the opening of Sesame Place, which is, it was going to be 25 minutes from her house. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And I get to Sesame Place and I realize I'm 9. I'm kind of over this. Like, I love the Muppets, but this isn't the Muppets. I don't need a Cookie Monster sandwich, right? So we had a fun day with my dad. We get in the car. I start singing "Let's Talk Dirty to the Animals" all over again. And so, like, I think that I've always kind of picked up on what I liked and tried to get away with it as much as possible.
Yes.
And my mom would say to me, I wish you knew your schoolwork as well as you know the ice cream routine from Eddie Murphy.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So I definitely studied them. I mean, formally, I studied the comics at the Comedy Works. I studied the comics that I love. I studied the scripts, Neil Simon plays, and the scripts of the sitcoms. Yeah.
You also had someone, I think I read, had told you to have a notebook by the side of so whenever you think about something funny or have something funny happen, write it down. Yeah.
So that's one of the pieces of advice I got from the guy who ran the comedy club. And it was, it was so interesting because it wasn't a journal in any way. So if you picked it up, you wouldn't have understood, what is this? It was like, it was like a little code to me.
Right. Sure.
And years later, I made a friend in college who wanted to do this, and I got him a book, and I said, just write. And now he's got his own show on Sirius XM, and he's well known.
Wow.
And then I was at a show. I was at a show right before lockdown, and he was saying to somebody, "This is the one that got me the book."
I love that. So now fast forward, how have you used comedy with MS? How has that helped you to advocate or to explain?
Well, I started to notice how I was using it, and I've shared the story on other podcasts before, but like, I was diagnosed for sure at a neuroradiologist appointment because the radiologist was doing the scan. And so he was able to say, to pull up the films and say, here's, we're looking at my skull basically. And he's like, lesion. And I'm hearing this, but the words out of my mouth were, okay, but do I look fat? So like once I saw that that's how I'm responding, I'm like, so it was very organic. I was like, okay, I guess that's how I'm dealing with this. And then I continued to just take in the permission to laugh.
Yeah.
I had a really hard time the morning I got the handicap tag for my car. But my goodness, when my boss said, can I borrow it? I have Springsteen tickets. I laughed so hard. I was nauseous, or if I parked in a regular space and my friend Scott would say, you parked in a normal person's spot. What are you doing? Like, I embraced it. I mean, dark humor, all humor.
Right.
Because all it did was help me move forward.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to be me seeing the funny in the negative. I have like what I call a toolbox of things that I know are going to crack me up.
Right.
That have nothing to do with anything. They're sitcoms or old movies or old stand-up routines, stuff like that.
Sure. So you find that is an easier way for you to communicate with people about multiple sclerosis?
Well, I find that by talking about MS in ways that can be relevant to people, like I told you about the fire analogy, and I
Yes.
can tell somebody else about the fire analogy that doesn't have MS, and I really feel like they've gotten it.
Right.
They're like, whoa. And so I do feel like humor makes things more relevant.
Definitely.
Humor makes things a little bit more human.
Yeah.
You know, I can easily, you know, I think I've been described as a wall walker, you know, and
Oh yeah.
and I'm like, is that like Skywalker? You know, I feel like, let me find the funny.
Right.
And don't think I'm making light of my disease. It's, you know, you don't have to live with it. I do.
Right.
But I started to really collect stories about how inappropriate things were said to me along the way. And then my friends were like, you have a show.
Yeah.
And that's what propelled me to do like this collection of story after story after story of just complete strangers
Right.
saying, you know, the wrong thing. But then plus stories of how my family was handling it, especially
Right.
my mom, and you know, yeah.
Now, when did you do? Because one of the things that you sent me that I thought was hysterically funny, and again, I was like, how have I not known you my whole life? When you did the part about your mom's MS. So how did that come to pass? Like how many years ago was that?
That was in 2011.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, this, when I did the 2011 show, the title was On My Nerves, but the working title was always, it's my mother's MS, I just have it. Because I had just clear sections of stories about, you know, her just feeling this right along with me. And everybody, you know, who is lucky enough to have a mom that loves them has stories of some sort of transference or some sort
Right.
of, you know, oh, my mom's feeling it for me. And in this case, it was, you know, the MS. And when that story truly actually happened, where she's
Right.
like, I can't come out and take care of you, I've got support group. I was like, thank you. You've given me this gold mine of material.
It is so funny how moms, I know that my mom was like, I better get tested. I might have given it to you. I'm like, Mom, you don't have any symptom. Like, what are you talking about? But okay, go ahead. Go get tested if you want to. I'm sorry you don't have it. It's really fun. So
no, it's mine. It's mine.
right.
Well, I remember the week after my diagnosis being traveling to a pitch with my boss at the ad agency, and he said, so Shari, is this genetic? And I said, well, I don't really think the jury's out that it's definitely genetic. I think it can happen, but so it's not in my family. He said, oh, it's not in your family? And I said, no, but please don't think for a second I don't blame my parents. I totally don't blame them.
So true. So true.
When Jack Osborne was diagnosed, I called my dad and I'm like, did you eat the head of a bat? Is that why I have MS, just like Jack Osborne? I was like, you know what? It's not kosher. We grew up kosher. There's no way you ate the head of a bat. He said, and he humored me at the time. He's like, no, I didn't. He actually answered the question. The head of a bat.
I love that. So now before I begin more funny, I know something really terrible happened to you right in the beginning of COVID. So I'm so sorry. When I read that, I was like, no. So I'm so sorry about that. And
thank you.
Tell our listeners.
So I lost my father pretty early into the pandemic. It was May of 2020. And, you know, he was diagnosed with an infection and then took him to the hospital. And they found COVID, and it was within a week's time that we lost him. Wow. I had to talk to him through nurses with hazmat suits and FaceTiming. And he was on morphine. I mean, there was no goodbye. And then we had the funeral was streaming over a website. My sisters and I did a memorial online on Zoom. It was very, very frustrating and very isolating.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And I'm still coming out of that.
Yeah.
A lot of
we
people
really haven't had that time to process. And a lot of my clients and people that I love have had similar things happen where they've lost a father or mother during like the beginning of COVID when you couldn't go see them. And it was like saying bye, just like you did. And I don't think that there's closure in that for a long time because you didn't have any.
No, I'm just now taking this online writing workshop about grief because I want to be able to write about it as a way to process. I think that's so important. And I noticed that when I'm funny in my writing for the grief workshop, it's snarky. It's like, it's anger, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just, it was, it was definitely interesting to be processing all that with COVID on top of everything else. It made COVID very different for me, my family, than maybe some others.
Sure.
You know?
Absolutely. Well, I'm so sorry to hear about that, because I can't imagine what that must have been like for you. And I'll be praying as you work through this. And so many, I just sent it because my best friend is Jewish. So I just send her your stuff. I'm like, you have to see this. So, but it just, you are just very, very hysterically funny to me. And I was reading your stuff in Momentum that you wrote, the article that you wrote, that just think outside the product box. I love that. So if you want, just quickly, we've got time, tell me a couple of stories. The crazy cane lady. So tell me about the cane stuff.
So the cane stuff, that was this really wonderful byproduct of my being a satire writer. And I was getting stuff published on the web and stuff like that. And I got used to writing snarky letters just for creative writing. And I said, what if I did it, you know, to the entities that I think could be a lot more accessible out there to people like me. And again, I was dealing with stupid situations and stupid people and stupid restaurants with no handicap spots and, you know, things like that, you know. And I took it and I ran with it. And I would just post them throughout the 1 week in March was like MS awareness stuff.
Right.
And I made them public. And it was wonderful. People were sharing them and responding to me. And it felt like, you know, everybody, especially women, have waited in line at a Broadway theater, right? Yes. To go to the bathroom, right?
Absolutely.
It's freaking Woodstock, right?
Yes, it's a nightmare.
Here I am. I can't wait in these lines. I couldn't possibly wait in these lines. Oh, the handicap bathroom, you have one? Oh, that's so great. It's down 2 corridors and then an elevator ride.
Exactly.
That's so helpful. Thank you. Oh my God. Like, what part of bathroom are you missing?
Right.
So, you know, and that's why I did the Dear Broadway theaters and the back to school nights where the parents is like speed dating and you have to go from this to this. And I can't make it from that wing of my son's high school to the other wing.
Right.
And then, I'm out of breath. I'm like, who's my kid? What? Who am I? And so the letters were really fun to write. Yes. And so the following March, I sat down to start to write a new batch with MS awareness. But that's when COVID hit. And I felt like this is not appropriate for me to do these letters right now. So I took a break with the letters. And I did like a video Oscar series where I gave different elements of MS an Academy Award every night.
I love that. Yes.
So yeah.
I love that. I love the way you take it and the things that could be so dark, you turn it and make it funny, which I think that's probably why I think it's hysterical, because that's my humor. And I do think that's very funny. So I love the fact that you take letters that are venting and things that happen that you're just like, can you believe this? And you make it funny, you make a funny story out of it. So tell me a little bit about what's on the horizon for you, something you really want to do.
Well, aside from just a creative podcast that wouldn't be MS centric, but you know, it's still me. That's a project I'm working on. And I do have another one woman show that I've been writing for a long time, which is called Cougar Beat instead of Tiger Beat. And it's all about being in my 50s and still having tremendous celebrity crushes my entire life.
Right. I look as a celebrity because I'm just a little bit younger than you. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can so relate to all this. And it was hysterically funny.
I'm at the point now where I have lifelong friends who, if I'm in a certain mood, they're like, honey, do you need an Ethan Hawke movie? You need an Ethan Hawke movie. I'm like, that's right. I need an Ethan Hawke movie. You know, like it's
yes.
or even Timothy Hutton, you know, I mean, I go way back, right? so I'm a very loyal fan to Dexter, to Michael C. Hall.
I saw that. I love that.
And very, very loyal to him. And when Dexter came back, I'm like, he knew I needed him. He knew. Well, that's why they did another season. You all think that's for you. That was for me.
Right.
So, I mean, I just, it's still so much a part of my world and my humor. And so, and I've got funny stories because I've met some of these guys. So it's just been like, it's been a fun thing to write. It's more expensive to produce a show in Princeton. Well, I'm sorry, I'm Princeton based than it was at the theater where I did my other show. So I just kind of put the production of it on hold. And then with COVID,
right. But everything was during that. So now that these have opened up, do you feel more like I'm starting to want to do some more of this stuff now? I want to do this. I love the idea of your podcast, by the way.
Thank you. That. I will be calling on you. I definitely, that's specifically what happened to me with the comedy was when my father passed, I stopped writing and didn't feel like I knew how, or if I should, or I felt guilty. And so in an effort to return to a more disciplined writer lifestyle within satire and comedy and get the show back up and running and get the podcast going, that's specifically why I'm taking the grief course. And the group is a workshop, and they're particularly, they're all about writing. They're all about writing through your grief. And they know I need to make a joke once in a while, or not even once in a while. They know I need to make a joke because that's me. And just whatever kind of lets me be the me now, the me without my dad.
Yes. And I think there's a spot for that, for some dark humor that could be that I hear often. And I think it's pretty darn funny. So I think go for it. I think you're going to be, don't hold back. And I think disabled people, we know we're disabled. So I think that the more funny stuff you can, we got the memo. We know. Got the memo. So I think the more funny you are, the better. And I think it's okay if people somebody's always going to be offended. You know that no matter what we do, someone's offended. So
there's right. There's no escaping it at all. I lost my gait standing in my office, and I fell into the trash can.
Oh yes.
So I was like sitting up in my office trash can. And there was a part of me that was like, should I be sad about this? Because I'm not. I'm so psyched. I fit in my office trash can. And it's like life's lemonade. Okay. So that's pretty much how I operate. Finding
when I went to see my best friend in Colorado, just a couple months ago, I tried to act like everything was fine. Nothing has really changed in my body, except I fell in the laundry basket in the middle of the night. And I thought the same thing. It's a little basket. I fit in it. That was good. I have bruises all over, but hey, first night there, scared the crap out of her and her husband, but it is what it is.
But you fit in the laundry basket, which is for some reason, just like I fit in the trash basket, a life goal. I mean, who are we?
I'm like, this is great. I fit in there. So.
And so when Sports Illustrated has their pajama issue for disability, I'm totally there.
So what I always say is that I don't need a Hooters. I'm going to call it Scooters, and I'm going to put fake boobs in and just go for it. If it gets too bad, I'm just going to call it Scooters, and our disabled community will just work with me. So.
I love it. Just make sure they serve wine.
Right. Exactly. So I love that you've been able to use this, and I can't wait. Your show in 2011 sold out. Your one woman show. So I can't even imagine what this one's going to do, especially once your podcast is going and people know more of you. What a great opportunity for you to share more of your jokes and your writing. And I'm going through that, and I'm laughing hysterically. I'm just thank you. So funny. Now you're writing. I'm curious, that doesn't not affect it. So I can't write very well for any length of time, but you are able to do that.
I'm able to type my hand. You can't read my handwriting. I'm able to type. Fortunately, that is very much, that's still on and sharp. I take my breaks.
Yeah.
Sure. and sometimes I have to remember to get up and move because I'll be so lost in
Sure.
the writing. And I'm having tremors sometimes. So I'm just kind of
All the
getting
new
used,
exciting things that
yeah,
we
all the
get.
new things that come along with
Right.
MS. Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, okay, what's that mean? Maybe I should stop typing and just
Right.
tremor for a while.
I never know. I'm like, I don't know what this means. I'll just wait on
Right.
it. So
Yeah.
it is, I think I love the way you've taken it with stride, and you're married, happily married. You said you have
Yes.
your son's 18 now.
He's 18. He just graduated high school.
Wow. And so you have a wonderful husband that's very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure very supportive of you doing a podcast and going back to comedy again and doing all the stuff that you were not feeling so inhibited to do it.
He loves it when I do stand up because I talk about other people, not him. And he's also very supportive of my celebrity stuff. But yeah, I when he's my best friend, so you want the best for your best friends, and he knows that that's a creative, healthy, joyous outlet. And so he's like, what do we need to do? And
that's
honestly,
awesome.
I did have to hit pause with COVID and my father, but I'm coming back into it. That's why I reached out to Kathy
Kathy Reagan,
at FUMS,
yes.
and I'm meeting more people now, so I'm happy to be here and part of the discussion. And please count on me for anything you're doing.
For sure. I love it. And Shari, it's been so great to meet you and to get to finally talk to you and not read all your stuff and just sit in there laughing hysterically. But I think I'm honored to do this with you, and I'm so excited that you are going back, because I think it would really be a loss for the disabled community if you weren't doing what you do. I think I think the fact that you're a comedian, and as a female comedian, I think it's so important that we have that, and that we can joke around about the crazy stuff that happens to us, like falling in things.
Nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it.
And I love that you're doing that. So I'm going to be at that one woman show that you got going. So you better believe it. I'm coming. So I am so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for taking lemons and making lemonade out of it, because we all don't do that. Some of us can get real negative. And
I love that you keep people moving. And I wish,
well, thank you.
I could do it more.
It's a big part, and we'll talk about that later. I can help you. But no, it's been a great time to interview you. I can't wait to have you back again. And I can't wait to have you join me on Wine on Wednesday. So that'll be awesome.
Just say when on Wednesday. Yes.
Awesome. I will for sure. Well, thank you. And again, guys, thank you so much. Go ahead and stay on, Shari, for a minute. Thank you so much. And we just want to thank you again for another awesome interview with Shari Short. And you can find her at sharishort@gmail.com. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, until my website gets up and running.
Okay, until the website's up and running, this is where you can find Shari. So very exciting. Make sure that you tune in. Make sure also you can watch this on YouTube. So thank you so much, guys. Have a great week. Hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Bye-bye. Fun.